The Australian elections are coming. Prime Minister Scott Morrison faces the contest of a lifetime. The Labour Party seems poised to make a comeback. But should it? Should a party of CCP stooges be allowed to form the next government in Australia? Should a party that has been infiltrated by China be allowed to lead Australia? In this video, we will expose the Australian Labour Party for what it really is. The Australian people will soon be required to make an informed choice. And if they choose the Labour Party, they would essentially be digging Australia's grave, over which China will dance a few years down the line. Hi and welcome. You're watching TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. And I'm your host Atul Mishra. In this video, I will tell you how Australians will hand over their country to China on a golden platter if they don't see through Liberal Party China theatrics. Let's begin. The Australia Labour Party is a dangerous entity. You see, Scott Morrison is not really at his strongest right now. In fact, it can be argued that he is at his weakest. The Australian government, led by a coalition, now has its primary vote diving to just 34%. This is the first time that the Liberals are falling behind Australia's Labour Party. The coalition's primary vote has slipped behind Labour, dropping from 39 to 34% and putting Labour in a strong position to win the next election. The last time the Labour Party won an outright majority in Australia was in 2007. As I said earlier, the Labour Party is dangerous. It is pro-China, even if it is today claiming to be a party replete with China and CCP hawks. There is an umpteen number of Labour leaders who are inclined towards the CCP. Some, like Victoria's Governor Daniel Andrews, are all-out CCP stooges who, if given the legroom, will sell Australia in its entirety to China. The only thing standing between such politicians and the CCP's bed right now is Prime Minister Scott Morrison. From paying scores of Victorian businesses to attend a big trade expo in China that was boycotted by the federal government to openly defying Scott Morrison's hawkish China policy, Victoria Governor Daniel Andrews has done it all. Andrews has been pushing for a $2 trillion Belt and Road initiative to be implemented in Victoria. However, the Scott Morrison government axed all such plans of Andrews. And guess what? He resisted the trashing of the BRI agreement signed between the CCP and Victoria. Why would he do that? It's really simple. He belongs to the Labour Party, which has a distinguished history of prostrating before China, even at the cost of Australia. In 2020, Australian intelligence officers and police had raided the home and office of Labour MP Shaukat Moselman. The New South Wales legislator had long been under the scanner from the opposition and his own party for having ties to the ruling Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. Moselman himself has been a huge admirer of Xi Jinping, which had first raised the alarm bells regarding him being a CCP stooge. He had publicly praised Xi Jinping's unswerving leadership during the coronavirus pandemic. He said, "For the People's Republic of China, President Xi stepped up and provided that leadership. He mustered the resources of the nation and together with the great people of China, fought it and contained it." And then there is Labour leader Anthony Albanese, who does not seem to get tired of attacking the Australian government for going tough on China and challenging the CCP. In fact, here's what this man recently had to say about Morrison's handling of China. Mr. Morrison is making the grave error of prioritizing his domestic political interests over Australia's national interests. He claimed that China was pressing its interests more assertively, while finding areas of potential cooperation, including on trade, that were in both countries' interests, and that by not towing the CCP's line, Morrison was making a grave mistake. It is important to note that Albanese is picked to be the natural choice for the Labour Party's prime ministerial face in the event they win the upcoming parliamentary elections, expected to be held in May this year. Before Prime Minister Scott Morrison, Australia's Prime Ministers really seem to pay no heed to China's visible plans of taking their country over. By 2019, China owned an airport in Western Australia, 9 million hectares of Australian land, several Australian coal mines and wind farms, and even the port of Darwin, a key strategic asset. China is also the largest foreign owner of Australian water. Over the past decade, China has poured more than $150 billion into Australia by investing in or acquiring Australian companies. It was Prime Minister Morrison who began kicking the Chinese out of several projects in Australia and also set out on a spree of reviews of important strategic infrastructure assets that China had managed to gobble over the years. Morrison also began an offensive against Chinese implants in Australian schools and universities, who were deployed by the CCP for the sole purpose of cynicizing Australians. It is now contingent upon Australians to make the right choice. Will they let petty politics cloud their judgment? And will they let mask mandates imposed by Morrison become a deciding factor in the upcoming elections? That would surely be a sorry sight to behold. Morrison has done so much more for the down under country, and his achievements do not deserve to be ignored only because a high transmissible variant of coronavirus managed to sweep through the Australian population.